Welcome, champions, to the next overview and tier list ranking, featuring the newest champion. This is where we'll break down their mechanics and place them in my overall tier list for every champion in the game. So let's talk about Lae'zel, the lawful evil Githyanki fighter in Seat 2. Unless you're really not a fan of RPGs, you probably recognize her from the new installment of Baldur's Gate in Larian Studios' next banger, Baldur's Gate 3. She aggressively joins the group as a support, DPS, and speed champion, under the new Absolute Adversaries affiliation, which may give you a hint at what's to come in the future. Her base attack moves her up to the closest monster and cleaves all nearby enemies with her greatsword, and her ultimate will cause her to leap into the middle of the screen and attack all enemies with a psionic shockwave, which deals 1 hit of bud damage, and if the enemies survive the attack, they are stunned for 5 seconds. Also, she gains a higher base chance to critically strike, set at a natural 20% chance. Lae'zel's main source of damage buffing as a support comes from her formation ability, Lethal Coordination, which will increase the damage of all champions in her column. For those paying attention, yes, that means she is excellent for Artemis, as a DPS tagged champion with a positional buff in a seat that otherwise does not have that role filled. She will further increase the damage buffing of Lethal Coordination with Ceramorphosis, which is a stacking multiplicative buff for every champion with Ceramorphosis in the group, which further hints at what champions are on the horizon. Expect more of Baldur's Gate 3's merry band of mind-flayer, tadpole-brained murder machines. While this will only have 1 stack for the time being, with Lae'zel being the first of that group, expect this to potentially scale well in the future, but not so much right now. She also gains Aberration Hunter, which marks aberrations as her favorite foe. Every time an aberration spawns, Lethal Coordination is multiplicatively increased, stacking up to 4 times the Ceramorphosis stack count, resetting when you change areas. This will also grant you a 33% chance that each wave in a non-boss area, an extra Mind Flayer will spawn. This also makes her have a unique synergy with Imoen in Seat 11, since this will never spawn in a boss area, but Imoen's polymorph can be selected for aberrations. And that does work in boss areas, and will count for this stack. While there are feats for this formation ability, it's only for the damage boost, not the chance to spawn. The problem currently with the combo of Lethal Coordination, Ceramorphosis, and Aberration Hunter stacks is that without Aberration Hunter stacks, Lethal Coordination is a below average buff, and fully stacked, it's just an average buff. She's going to need those extra Ceramorphosis stacks in the future to really take off. Her speed comes with straight to the point, where whenever an enemy is defeated by anything other than Lae'zel, she will gain an Impatience stack. When she reaches 17 stacks, the current area will be completed and her stacks will reset to the current stack of your Ceramorphosis. This is a bit of a different take on speed than we've seen before. However, this cannot be upgraded through her equipment, and we only get increases through her feats. And we currently can't increase the Ceramorphosis stack, but we'll be able to in the future. More advanced players will see little benefit in this in their speedruns, as even though this carries through areas, an endgame speedrun excels at requiring very little kills to progress in the first place. But for early players, this is going to be very useful. If using both of the feats, you're going to bring this up to a 250% chance, or 2.5 impatient stacks per kill. But you have to weigh it against Whittle, who shares a seat with her, and Whittle is the best way to increase enemy spawn speed. Basically, at the end of the day, she's likely not going to be in your main speed team if you have a healthy speed setup. But until you're at that point, she'll be decent. And she'll be handy if you're hit with any heavy restrictions in certain scenarios. For a less little sprinkle, she gets Ferocious Warrior, where if she attacks and any of her targets survive, the base cooldown of her next attack is reduced by 4 seconds. This does make her an interesting pairing with Freely's Lawful Spec, as she'll be quickly attacking groups in Area of Effect to rapidly apply his debuff on multiple enemies. And while this doesn't really increase her flat damage output all that much, if she happens to be your main DPS, this will speed up armor breaking and hit-based health takedowns. Her specializations take the form of the base 3 fighter martial archetypes in D&D, or subclasses she can become in Baldur's Gate 3. Champion, Battlemaster, and Eldritch Knight. Champion will increase her crit chance by 20% and her crit damage by 100%. A solid base choice if you're using her as a DPS. Battlemaster will cause her to debuff enemies that she attacks who survive the attack, making them take 4 seconds of Bud base damage the next time a member of your formation other than her hits them. This is the top pick if you're using her as a support, and does synergize well with her Ferocious Warrior. Eldritch Knight will have her cast Magic Missile immediately after attacking, sending out 3 missiles at random targets after attacking with her base attack. This is a great pick if you're using her as your DPS and want more armor breaking or hit-based damage, or if you're looking to change her base attack into a magical attack. Her equipment takes a step back from what was becoming the norm. 1 slot for all damage, 1 for lethal coordination, 1 for Ceramorphosis, 1 for Aberration Hunter, then back to ultimate damage and ultimate cooldown. Nothing for her speed or specializations, though as her specs are not tied to scaling numbers, that does make sense. Her feats are straightforward, a little bit for everything via her damage, all damage, formation abilities, and criticals, but her only epic for the time being is tied to her speed mechanic. So let's talk about her event. Ahghairon's Day. Ahghairon Day? Ahghairon's Day. This time around, we have 3 evil ladies to choose from, in Lae'zel, Veronica, and Prudence. Lae'zel and Veronica being the standouts this time around. No offense to interested parties in Prudence. Veronica is a great support and has unique interactions, with her being qualified as, quote, dead. And Lae'zel is decent herself, so it depends on what you're looking for as far as a hard focus if you're looking for one. Both of them are solid options. But as always, full epic whoever you can, and keep in mind it is Prudence's last time being tied to this event, before she is retired and only unlockable through time gates. Now what about her achievement and adventure variants? Her achievement is very simple, requiring you to complete 1,000 areas with her straight-to-the-point speed ability. Simply use her and eventually it'll happen. All of the variants shouldn't be giving anyone too much trouble. They all start with her in the formation, but for a switch-up, she cannot be moved or removed for any of them. The first will cause only champions in her column to deal damage. Quite simple, as if you're forced to use her, you'll want your DPS in her column anyway. The second forces you to only use champions with a base attack cooldown of 5 seconds or faster. A pretty wide selection to choose from, and it also starts her out with straight to the point unlocked to get her speed rolling right at the start of the run. The third starts her out with both Ceramorphosis and Aberration Hunter unlocked. In this one you can only use Lae'zel and champions with an intelligence of 13 or higher. This will also have a Mind Flayer spawn with each wave to help her Aberration Hunter come online. Her availability isn't amazing, only usable for 2 patrons, and her charisma holding her back from qualifying for every Trials restriction, but she fits into a lot of formations quite well. Again, great for Artemis as a DPS with a positional buff, and that positional being incredibly easy to use with Warduke, just don't have them in the same column. She's evil for Krond, and an exotic race for Ashara. For real this time, I promise. And even if you don't use her as a DPS or as a support, she still has the potential to be used as a speedster. Her overall damage buffing and damage output for sure isn't the greatest though, but it has the potential to grow with Ceramorphosis. And we'll have to wait and see just how many tadpole-brained sons of bitches join the roster before we see her full potential. At the end of the day, I'm raking her a B, as her numbers right now aren't the greatest. But I have a feeling I might be changing her rank in the future depending on how many Ceramorphosis stacks she'll be able to attain, so keep that in mind. I can only rank her based on how she is now, and she's useful, but doesn't excel at anything in particular. Thanks for hanging around today. Leave a comment on what you think of Lae'zel, and what you hope to see from her ragtag band of tadpoled misfits in the future. But more importantly, have a hell of a time out there, champions.